Hi and welcome back. Now that we have explored four industrial revolutions, let's do a small comparative analysis across these four. What are the similarities that we are seeing and what are the differences? So, when you talk about the first industrial revolution, it began in the late 18th century and it went on until the early 19th century. The second one was from the late 19th century to the early 20th century. Third one was from mid 20th century to the early 21st century. And finally, the fourth one started from the late 20th century and it went on to the 21st century. So when you talk about key innovations, the first industrial revolution gave us the steam engine and also textile machinery like the spinning jenny. The second industrial revolution took it one step ahead. It gave us electricity, mass production, and the telegraph. So, mass production started with the Model T by Henry Ford and it went on to impact and transform the world as we know today. The third industrial revolution gave us computers, the internet, and a lot of digital technologies that we use or take for granted right now. And finally, if you look at the fourth industrial revolution, it gave us a lot of cutting edge innovative technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, biotechnology, and automation. So, when you look at things from a technological impact perspective, the first industrial revolution mechanized production, factories, and transportation systems. The second one, there were advances in manufacturing, transportation systems, and the way we communicate using things like the telegraph and using radio waves to communicate. The third industrial revolution, with the emergence of digital technologies, connectivity improved greatly. There were great levels of automation. So, the start of the robotic revolution and also high speed internet connectivity like fiber optics, broadband, and also cellular connectivity. The fourth industrial revolution changed it entirely with the integration of the digital, physical, and the biological world using different kinds of technologies like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and blockchain. So, talking a bit more about the economic impact, there was a shift from agrarian to the industrial economy or the rise of the factory systems. So, from farming to agriculture based production, people started moving to factories where they were given the promise of a better tomorrow. Then, if you talk about the second industrial revolution, there was a greater focus on more industrialization, economic growth, and the rise of industrial giants. So, some of the companies that were started in the second industrial revolution included Ford Motor Company, US Steel Corporation, and the General Electric Company. So, these started in the second industrial revolution and they still do business today. When you look at the impact of the third industrial revolution, there was a transition to information based economy. So, moving from a production based economy to a much more service based economy where we focus on data. The economy of the third industrial revolution was driven by data, and when you look at the fourth, it continues to grow and expand, and data becomes a new fuel for the economy. So, the transformation of industries and the disruption of traditional economies can be seen in the fourth industrial revolution, where we move away from traditional industries to much more advanced manufacturing, advanced material, and a lot of other advanced industries that were just science fiction a few years back. So, when we look at the societal impact, the first industrial revolution brought forth changes like urbanization, changes in the social structure, and class dynamics. So, things like factory owners were considered the upper class, while the workers were considered the working class. When you look at the second industrial revolution, there's some sort of resistance that's building up within the workforce. So, labor movements, urbanization, and also the emergence of consumer culture. So, as the population grew, people started consuming more, and this created a massive demand for businesses to satisfy the growing needs of the consumer. And consumers had a huge say in this because consumers were willing to support the businesses that satisfied their needs. When you look at the third industrial revolution, we see this whole explosion of digital connectivity, globalization, and cultural shift. So we see with the internet the exchange of Eastern and Western cultural values, understanding that we live in a globalized world and that we should cooperate as global citizens was created by this whole technological revolution that connected us through technologies like the internet and mobile communication. When we go into the future, we're going to see how AI or artificial intelligence is going to impact a lot of industries from completely automating repetitive and mundane tasks to taking over some sort of creative task as well. For example, using artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, Midjourney, Runway. So all these tools can create videos and write text and generate images. So it's going to change how we do things or how we work in the future. Then there's also shifts in labor landscape. So things like remote work, working from anywhere, those things will also transform the traditional way that we used to do things. Then there's also social changes. So for example, digital nomads. So people who go and visit another country and stay there for some time and then work from their laptop will basically change the way we do work and how we function as a society. Then, when we look at the labor and workforce changes, if we look back at the first industrial revolution, it was a transition from rural to urban labor. Employment shift from agriculture to a factory based work life. Then, in the second industrial revolution, there were assembly lines and skilled labor demand and migration to urban areas. So, people would work in factories, but also the factory system became very efficient where one person focused on assembling or building one thing only and then became a specialist in it. So, for example, if you take a car manufacturing factory, the car used to flow from an assembly line, and then one person used to fix the wheels, another person used to fix the engine, and so forth. So, this created a much more efficient way of doing things rather than having one person manufacture an entire car. Then, when we move on to the third industrial revolution, there was a massive skill shift. Because of the information revolution, people started moving on to much more service based jobs. For example, IT consultants, software engineers, and any job that has something to do with technology showed a lot of promise that the future is going to be exciting. So then people started learning skills like programming and started shifting their careers. Then there's also automation and changing job landscapes. So, with the internet rapidly expanding throughout the globe and internet bandwidth and speed gradually increasing, there were a lot of opportunities that started to open up in terms of things like remote working, online businesses like the Amazon showed a lot of promise that the future is going to be a much more different experience compared to the traditional way that we used to do things. Then fast forward into the fourth industrial revolution, we had automation, AI integration, artificial intelligence integration, the emergence of the gig economy or the freelance economy. So companies no longer had to train their internal workforce or upskill their internal workforce. In the fourth industrial revolution, they could easily outsource it to a freelancer who is much more experienced in dealing with a complex scenario or a complex use case that the company might not have expertise in. Then, when we look at connectivity, it was very limited communication, local markets, and slow transportation. So, understanding the customer needs and also adapting to the market was extremely slow because the industrial revolutions just got started and connectivity was extremely slow. When we move on to the second industrial revolution, it gradually increased to a good level because telegraphs and radio communication were born or created during this era. It improved transportation networks and also intercontinental railways. Third industrial revolution changed the entire game with the emergence of the internet and digital communication tools. And the fourth industrial revolution will push it further with global interconnectivity, Internet of Things, and cyber physical systems or smart systems which can self organize, self optimize, and self learn with minimum human intervention. So, when it comes to global impact, the first industrial revolution, there was very limited global impact, regional economies, and isolated economies. The second industrial revolution, with the expansion of global trade networks and imperialism, created an increased momentum in terms of global impact and transformation. Third industrial revolution definitely accelerated it because of the internet, globalization of markets and interconnected economies started to appear. When you move forward with the fourth industrial revolution, there's going to be more interconnected global economies and borderless information exchange. So, what about the environmental impact? When you look at the first industrial revolution, it's early industrial pollution. That's where the problem started, and there were massive levels of resource extraction to keep up with the growing demand. Moving forward, the second industrial revolution, there was industrial pollution concerns and also resource depletion. So, the second industrial revolution started to question, what if we start going at this pace? Will we have enough resources? And what about all the toxic fumes that were released to the atmosphere? So, these were a few concerns that started appearing in the second industrial revolution. When we moved to the third, there was a growing concern over environmental degradation, coming specially from consumers who saw the problems that they were facing in real life, from emissions related to burning fossil fuels to plastic pollution. When we look at the fourth industrial revolution, it's a sustainable technology focused first approach. So, concepts like zero waste, circular economy are starting to appear in the fourth industrial revolution, and there's a greater degree of adopting renewable energy technologies. So, now that we have done a comparative analysis on the first, the second, the third, and the fourth industrial revolutions, now let's go back to our workbook and answer question 5 on page 14. How did technological advancements during the third industrial revolution, such as the emergence of the internet and digital connectivity, influence global interconnectivity and communication, and how do these differ from the technological integrations seen in the fourth industrial revolution, encompassing AI, robotics, and the Internet of Things? So now let's spend a few minutes to answer this question, and I'll see you on the next lecture.